The Penderwicks, A Summer Tale of Four Sisters, Two Rabbits, and a Very Interesting Boy, by Jeanne Birdsall. Chapter 6. Rabbits in a Long Ladder. After breakfast the next morning, Patty took Hound out to his pen to tell him about her adventure with the bull. As he had already heard the story 4 times the night before, he ignored her and tried to undo the latch on his gate again. But Mr. Penderwick had fixed that after his escape the day before. Hound was trapped. Batty had just reached the part where Geoffrey yelled, "Yeah, yeah," when Geoffrey himself arrived. "Hey, Batty," he said. "You swore not to tell anybody what happened." Batty ran over to the gate and unlatched it to let Geoffrey inside. Geoffrey took a piece of cold sausage out of his pocket and gave it to Hound. "Hound doesn't count," said Batty. "I tell him everything." "What did Sky say to your father and Rosalind about your wings?" "That I got stuck in some prickers and she and you and Jane had to get me out and my wings tore. Rosalind fixed them for me." Geoffrey inspected the neat patches and darns in the filmy fabric. "She did a good job." "She always does. She takes care of me because Mommy died when I was a tiny baby." "Do you miss her?" "No, because I can't remember." "Rosalind misses her. She cries in her sleep sometimes." "Don't tell anybody I told you that," said Batty. "Now you have to tell me a secret." Geoffrey leaned down and whispered in her ear. "I was really scared of that bull yesterday. You don't tell anybody either." "Okay," said Batty, and they shook hands. Rosalind came out of the cottage and over to the pen. "Good morning, Geoffrey. Thanks for helping get Batty out of the prickers yesterday." "You're welcome," he said, looking sideways at Batty, who gave a happy little jump. "Cagney has invited Batty and me over to meet his rabbit this morning," said Rosalind. "And he said too many people would scare the bunnies, so Sky and Jane aren't allowed to go," said Batty. "That's enough, Batty. Come on, time to go." "Sit and say goodbye, Hound," said Batty in her best imitation of Sky being bossy. Hound rolled over on his back. "Hound, you heard me." He barked and waved his legs in the air until Rosalind opened the gate and tugged Batty out of the pen. "Goodbye, Geoffrey. We've got to leave. We don't want to be late for Cagney," she said, heading toward Arundel Hall with Batty in tow. Earlier that morning, Cagney had arrived at the cottage to water the rosebush. At the same moment, Rosalind had needed to go outside and fill Hound's food bowl. Or so she pretended. What she had really needed was to apologize for the brouhaha of the day before. Almost burning down buildings and saying nasty things was not the picture Rosalind wanted people to have of the Penderwick family. But Cagney had just laughed and said all that had been nothing, and when he was 9, not only had he and his brother set their uncle's truck on fire with a firecracker, they had tried to blame it on their sister. And Rosalind had thought that Cagney was very generous to try to make her feel better, and wondered why she had never before realized how much she liked baseball caps on boys. Then Batty had come outside looking for Rosalind, and Cagney asked if she wanted to meet the rabbits, and Batty managed to stay visible long enough to say yes. "So meet me at 10 o'clock at my apartment," said Cagney. His apartment? Rosalind had never been in a teenage boy's apartment. As she hurried Batty along, she wondered what it would look like. Anna, who had 2 brothers in college, said that all boys were slobs, that it was in their genetic makeup. But Rosalind wasn't so sure. It was hard to imagine her father, for example, making the messes Anna's brothers did. Potato chips in underwear drawers and pizza crusts in beds, even when he was young. Rosalind and Batty arrived at the carriage house exactly on time and found the screen door Cagney had described, with a "Beware of Attack Rabbits" sign nailed alongside. "Here we are," said Rosalind to Batty, but Batty had vanished. Rosalind found her around the corner, hiding behind a big barrel full of geraniums. "I've changed my mind," said Batty. "Oh, sweetheart, Cagney's not a scary boy," said Rosalind. "Yes, he is. But he's already told the rabbits about you. Think how sad they'll be if they don't meet you." "Tell them I'll come another day. They're waiting for you now." Batty knew how it felt to be disappointed, like when Sky had promised to play Peter Pan with her, then forgotten. She crept out from behind the barrel and walked back to the screen door with Rosalind. Rosalind knocked on the door. "Come on in. Shut the screen door tight behind you," came Cagney's voice. Inside, Rosalind was interested and relieved to find a clean and cozy living room with a tidy little kitchen off to the side. She stored up details for her next letter to Anna: a green plaid couch, a pile of books about the Civil War, a half-dozen baseball caps hanging in a row, a framed photograph of Cagney playing basketball. Cagney stepped out of the kitchen carrying a bunch of fresh parsley. If he was disturbed by the wings that seemed to sprout from the back of Rosalind's legs, he didn't show it. Yaz and Carla are under the couch, he said. Yaz will come out for parsley, but don't be disappointed if Carla stays under there. She's very shy. Rosalind heard a tiny "oh" behind her. She reached around and took Batty's hand, and together they lay down on the floor and stared under the couch. Cagney stretched out next to Rosalind and pushed the parsley toward the couch. "Can you see them?" he asked. Yaz is the brown one with spots, and Carla is that chubby white blob behind him. At first, Rosalind could only see vague shapes, but as her eyes adjusted to the dark, she saw 4 glittering eyes and 4 ears swiveling in her direction. Just as Cagney had said, Yaz soon crawled out, stretched and yawned, then grabbed a large piece of parsley and solemnly chewed it to bits. As he started on another, Cagney touched Rosalind's arm and pointed. That little Carla was scrabbling out from her hiding place. "She's not going to let Yaz eat all the parsley without her," said Cagney. But Carla, for once, wasn't interested in parsley. Something in her tiny rabbit brain had recognized the presence of a kindred spirit in the room. Toward Batty she headed, 1 hop, 2 hops, and Carla was nuzzling Batty's hand with her soft nose. This was too much for Yaz. Parsley was one thing, but attention was quite another. In another second, he was snuffing at Batty's other hand. "What do I do?" whispered Batty, so excited her wings were quivering. "They want you to pet them, Batty," said Cagney. "It's a great honor. I've never seen Carla go right to a stranger before." Batty gently stroked the rabbits, Yaz on her left and Carla on her right. "Oh, Rosalind, they love me." Rosalind and Cagney smiled at each other. "Thank you," said Rosalind. "Any time," said Cagney. When Rosalind and Batty left to visit the rabbits, Geoffrey went in search of Skye and Jane. He found them sitting on the front porch of the cottage. Between them was a very flat soccer ball. "Look what Hound did," said Jane. "How am I supposed to practice with a punctured ball?" "Jane's our team's center forward," said Skye. "She's so good that the middle school coach is already coming to games to watch her." "Don't exaggerate," said Jane, but didn't really mean it. Soccer was the only thing at which she had shown Skye, other than writing books, and she loved it when Skye was generous enough to brag about it. Geoffrey said, "You can borrow my ball. I'll go back home and get it now if you want." Jane jumped down from the porch. "Can we go with you?" "Sure," but Skye hung back. "What about, you're worried about Mother," said Geoffrey. "No, it's not like I'm scared of her. I was just wondering if maybe she'd mind us being there." "Of course not. Why would she?" said Geoffrey, and started to walk away. Then he looked back over his shoulder at Skye. "Besides, she's not home. She's at a garden club committee meeting. Come on." Geoffrey took Skye and Jane into Arundel Hall, through the carved oak door at the front. They found themselves in a magnificent entranceway, so big the whole cottage could have been put into it, and there still would have been room for Hound to run around the outside. The wood floors gleamed, as did the wide staircase that rose in front of them. Stained glass windows on either side of the oak door tinted the sunlight 100 different colors. Giant blue and white vases filled with fresh flowers stood in every corner. "The splendor of 100 civilizations," said Jane. "Don't touch anything," said Skye. "Let's go to my room," said Geoffrey, heading for the stairs. But Jane had to see at least one of the rooms that opened off the entranceway. She tiptoed over to the wide doorway on the left. Yet more grandeur. Antique wooden tables with intricately carved legs, hand-woven tapestries with scenes of unicorns and ladies in tall pointed hats, delicate alabaster statues of birds and exquisite oil paintings of gardens. As she told Rosalind later, it was like a museum, except with no velvet ropes or uniformed guards. Skye dragged Jane away, and the two followed Geoffrey up the staircase, circling around and around up to the 3rd floor in Geoffrey's bedroom, which was, thankfully, a regular room, not like a museum at all. There were normal old rugs on the floor, ones you wouldn't be afraid to walk on in your shoes, and the furniture was plain and looked like you would bump into it without scratching it. There was, however, one very special thing that neither sister had ever before seen in a bedroom. "A piano," said Skye. "It's just an upright," said Geoffrey apologetically. "The big one's downstairs." "Can you play it?" Jane asked. Geoffrey pulled a soccer ball out from under the bed, twirled it on his finger like a basketball star, learned that from Cagney, then headed it to Skye, who neatly caught it. "Yeah, but not now. Let's go back outside." "Aren't you any good?" asked Skye sympathetically. She understood all about that. Her father had been forced to cancel her clarinet lessons after the neighbors complained about her practicing. It's not that. Please, said Jeanne. Well, just a little bit, if you really want to hear. Jeffrey lifted the piano lid and sat down on the stool. Skye and Jeanne put on their polite faces in preparation to hear awful playing. But what they heard instead was so beautiful that Skye thought Jeffrey was teasing them by playing a recording under the piano. But she checked, and he wasn't. Jeffrey broke off after just 1 minute and grabbed the soccer ball from Skye. Okay, let's go. Wait, shrieked Jeanne. I want to hear more. Why did you pretend you weren't any good, said Skye. Jeffrey's face glowed. Do you really like it? That was Tchaikovsky, and I've only been practicing it for a while. And of course there should be a full orchestra too. Music is what I really wanted to do. My music teacher at school says I'll be able to get into Juilliard, and then if I'm good enough, I want to conduct someday. But Mother... Jeffrey! Everyone froze and looked at each other. Skye recognized the voice. Jeanne could guess. She must have gone home early, said Jeffrey. He stuck his head out the door and yelled, I'm in my room. Come downstairs, dear. I brought the Robinettes home with me. Mrs. Robinette and her son Teddy. Mother will expect me to entertain him, said Jeffrey miserably. You two better stay up here until I can ditch him and come back to sneak you out of the house. Why can't we just come with you? Asked Skye. You don't want to meet Teddy. His idea of humor is flushing other kids' homework down the school toilet. I'll try to be quick. Maybe I can drown him in the lily pond. Jeffrey slipped out the door. Well, said Skye, she didn't like being stuck indoors because of a bully. Jeanne wasn't thinking about bullies. She was standing at one of Jeffrey's windows, gazing out, just as he had on the day the Penderwicks first arrived. And just as Arthur would in her book, poor Arthur, longing desperately for a kind word from someone, from anyone. How would Sabrina's star first appear to Arthur, way up here at his high window? Jeanne hadn't decided yet. Could Sabrina pilot a blimp? No, blimps were too big, and would get stuck in the trees. A helicopter would be impressive, but also noisy. Sabrina wouldn't want Miss Horriferous. That was what Jeanne had named Arthur's evil kidnapper, to hear her coming. But what about hot air balloon? Yes, Sabrina could rescue Arthur in a hot air balloon. Jeanne, said Skye. Earth to Jeanne. What? Skye was at another window. Come here and look. We can climb out and down that big tree. Jeffrey said to wait for him. It could take him hours to get rid of that Teddy jerk. Help me open this. Together they pushed the heavy old window up as far as it would go and removed the screen. They tossed the soccer ball out the window, then Skye climbed onto the windowsill, hopped out and onto a thick branch and looked down. She wasn't afraid of heights, but it was 3 long stories to the ground. She grabbed another branch for support and peered around for Jeanne. Where are you? She whispered. I'm writing a note for Jeffrey, said Jeanne from inside the room. How about... Flew away, see you later. I don't care what you write, just hurry up. A minute later, Jeanne was next to her on the branch. Carefully, they edged over to the trunk, then shinnied down to the next branch, and then another, until they came to the lowest branch. They were still 15 feet from the ground. Now what? Asked Jeanne. I don't know, said Skye. We could go back up. Give me time, I'll think of something. Skye could have thought all day without getting them down from that tree. It was lucky for them that Batty's visit to the rabbits had ended 5 minutes earlier, which meant that Batty and Rosalind were on their way back to the cottage to tell Hound all about it. But more important, it also meant that Cagney was back at work at the gardens. Jeanne spotted him pushing his wheelbarrow toward a bed of dahlias about 20 feet from the tree. Hi, Cagney, she called. Cagney turned around in a circle, trying to locate the source of the voice. Up here, said Jeanne. Then he looked up and laughed. What are you two doing? We're sort of stuck, said Skye. Hold on. He disappeared. Moments later, he was back with a long ladder, which he leaned against the tree trunk. Skye, then Jeanne, clambered down safely. You have our undying gratitude for rescuing us from a fate worse than death, said Jeanne. And could you tell Jeffrey we escaped, said Skye, and that he should come over to the cottage for soccer practice when he gets rid of that Teddy Robinette kid? Actually, Cagney, you might be able to help Jeffrey with Teddy, said Jeanne. Jeffrey's trying to drown him, said Skye. I'll take care of it, said Cagney, and Skye and Jeanne slipped away with the soccer ball.